The separation between Tatiana and Ilya was far more than a mere marital dispute. It was the unraveling of years of deception that shattered trust beyond repair. At the heart of their fractured relationship lay Igor, a name that had become synonymous with betrayal, lies, and secrets buried too deep to unearth until now. For 17 years, Tatiana lived under the shadow of uncertainty, her mind plagued by unanswered questions about Igor's disappearance. But what she discovered during one fateful confrontation turned her world upside down. Ilya had not only known the truth all along, but had deliberately concealed a letter from Igor addressed to her, a letter that could have changed everything. That night, as rain lashed against the windows of their once happy home, the air crackled with tension. "How could you keep this from me?" Tatiana screamed, clutching the crumpled paper and trembling hands. Her voice echoed through the empty halls, each word dripping with fury and anguish. Ilya stood frozen, his face pale, unable to deny the evidence before him. The letter wasn't just proof of his deceit, it was a dagger plunged straight into Tatiana's soul. Every unspoken doubt, every suspicion she'd ever harbored about Ilya came rushing back like a tidal wave, drowning her in bitterness. In that moment, she realized the man she thought she knew never truly existed. He was a stranger wearing a mask of love, hiding behind layers of manipulation and lies. Blinded by rage and heartbreak, Tatiana made a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. Without uttering another word to Ilya, she packed a single suitcase, leaving behind photographs, mementos, and memories tainted by his betrayal. As she stepped out into the stormy night, the weight of her choice bore down on her shoulders. She didn't know where she was going or how she would survive. But one thing was certain, staying meant losing herself completely. Little did she know, however, that her departure would set off a chain reaction of events that would expose even darker truths lurking beneath the surface. The tension in the family had reached a breaking point, and Sonia, feeling suffocated by her parents' constant fighting and impossible demands, decided to take matters into her own hands. It wasn't just about skipping school anymore. It was about escaping a life that felt like a prison. Her father's ultimatum that she could only attend school if her mother gave birth had pushed her over the edge. She couldn't bear the thought of being trapped in such a toxic environment any longer. Together, they planned to leave the city, hoping to start a new life where no one knew their names or their past. But fate had other plans. As they stood on the dimly lit platform, scanning the arrival board for their train, a security guard approached them. "Are you two waiting for someone?" he asked suspiciously. Sonia froze, clutching her bag tightly while Dennis tried to deflect attention. "We're just meeting friends," he stammered, but his nervousness betrayed him. The guard demanded identification, and when neither of them could produce valid IDs, he radioed for backup. Within minutes, police officers arrived, surrounding the young couple. Panic surged through Sonia as she realized the gravity of what they'd done. Not only were they caught trying to run away, but now the authorities were involved. Back home, chaos erupted when Tatiana received the call from the police station. She rushed there alongside Ilya, who looked pale and shaken. "How could you let this happen?" he hissed at her under his breath, though both knew blame would do little to fix the situation. At the station, Sonia sat slumped in a chair, tears streaming down her face as an officer explained the severity of their actions. Running away underage was bad enough, but because Dennis was technically an adult, the incident raised questions about statutory laws and parental negligence. If Tatiana and Ilya failed to provide a convincing explanation, they risked losing custody of Sonia permanently. As the night wore on, tempers flared. Tatiana begged Sonia to understand how dangerous running away truly was, especially given the secrets lurking within their family. "Do you have any idea what people are capable of?" she pleaded, thinking of Igor's unresolved case and the shadowy figures still watching them. Meanwhile, Ilya raged at Dennis, accusing him of manipulating his daughter. "You think you can waltz in here and destroy everything we've built?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the sterile hallway. Dennis remained silent, his guilt evident, but Sonia defended him fiercely. "He didn't make me do anything," she screamed, her voice cracking. "I wanted to leave." By the time they returned home, exhausted and defeated, the rift between everyone seemed irreparable. Yet amid the turmoil, one thing became clear. Sonia's rebellion wasn't merely teenage angst, it was a cry for help, a desperate attempt to escape the tangled web of lies and betrayals that define their lives. The decision to allow Artyom to move in with Tatiana's family ignited a storm of controversy. But what truly sent shivers down their spines was the unspoken fear that he might be carrying more than just his belongings. Whispers of Igor's unresolved case lingered in the air, and Artyom's sudden arrival felt like an ominous sign. "He's not just some stray dog we can take in without consequences," Ilya muttered under his breath during one heated argument. Tatiana tried to defend her choice, insisting it was out of compassion since Artyom had nowhere else to go. But deep down, even she couldn't ignore the nagging suspicion that this young man could be connected, the shadows haunting them for years. Tensions escalated when Sonia overheard a hushed conversation between her parents late at night. "What if he knows something about Igor?" Tatiana whispered anxiously. "Or worse, what if he's working for someone who wants revenge?" Her words hung heavy in the darkness, painting every corner of the house with paranoia. The next morning, as Artyom unpacked his things, his calm demeanor only fueled their unease. His presence became a ticking time bomb, threatening to expose secrets they weren't ready to face or survive. Maxim's relentless pursuit of the truth about Igor had become a dangerous obsession, one that placed not only his career but also his life at risk. Late one stormy night, as he sifted through stacks of old documents in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, Maxim felt the weight of paranoia pressing down on him. Every shadow seemed to move, every creak of the floorboards echoed like a warning. He knew he was too close to uncovering something monumental. But before he could piece together the final puzzle, chaos erupted. A group of masked assailants burst into the room, their faces obscured by hoods and scarves. "Where are the files?" one of them growled, grabbing Maxim by the collar. His heart pounded as he stammered, "I don't know what you're talking about." The lie earned him a brutal punch to the gut, followed by another demand for the document he'd managed to secure, a single page that held evidence linking Vadim to Igor's case. The attackers ransacked the place, overturning tables and scattering papers everywhere until they found what they were looking for. As they fled into the darkness, leaving Maxim bloodied and barely conscious on the cold concrete floor, he realized with dread that his lifeline, the only proof connecting Vadim to Igor's disappearance, was gone. When Tatiana arrived later, alerted by a cryptic voicemail from Maxim, she found him clutching his side, gasping for air. "They took it," he whispered hoarsely, his voice trembling with both pain and fear. "It's Vadim, he's behind everything?" Meanwhile, Vadim sat in his opulent office, sipping whiskey while reviewing the stolen document. Though outwardly calm, his hands betrayed his anxiety, fingers drumming nervously against the glass. For years, he'd meticulously erased all traces of Igor's existence, ensuring no loose ends remained. Yet now, with Maxim digging deeper and Tatiana growing suspicious, cracks began to form in his carefully constructed facade. Desperation drove him to drastic measures. He contacted Ilya, proposing a deal. If we don't act now, we're both finished, Vadim warned, his tone icy. Ilya hesitated, but eventually agreed, knowing full well that exposing Vadim would inevitably implicate himself as well. Together, they devised a plan to silence anyone who dared question the past, even if it meant destroying those closest to them. As tensions escalated, Maxim vowed revenge, not just for himself, but for Igor, whose name had been dragged through the mud for far too long. Little did he know, his next move would ignite a chain reaction neither he nor Tatiana could have anticipated. The ultimatum from Sonia's father shattered the fragile peace in their already fractured household. He demanded that Tatiana give birth to another child as a condition for allowing Sonia to continue her education, an absurd, cruel request that left both mother and daughter reeling. For Sonia, it was not just an attack on her future, but a betrayal of everything she thought her family stood for. As she overheard her parents arguing late one night, the weight of his words crushed her spirit. "How could you agree to this?" She screamed at Tatiana the next morning, tears streaming down her face. But Tatiana had no answers. She was trapped between preserving her daughter's dreams and protecting herself from further emotional turmoil. When Sonia learned about the ultimatum, her despair reached a breaking point. Consumed by anger and helplessness, she swallowed a handful of sleeping pills in a desperate attempt to escape the suffocating reality. The discovery of her unconscious body sent shockwaves through the family. Ilya blamed Tatiana, his voice laced with venom. "This is your fault. You should have handled it better." Meanwhile, Tatiana sat beside Sonia's hospital bed, guilt gnawing at her soul. Though Sonia survived, the incident plunged them all into a vortex of fear, blame, and regret. It became clear that the scars ran deeper than anyone had imagined. Amidst this chaos, Aleftina's erratic behavior escalated to alarming levels. Her memory loss worsened, replaced by delusions so vivid they bordered on madness. She rambled incessantly about the child Tatiana had aborted years ago, insisting that the baby was alive and hidden away by some unknown force. "You think I don't know?" She cried during dinner one evening, slamming her fists on the table. "That child is out there, waiting for us." Her accusations tore open old wounds, forcing Tatiana to confront painful memories she'd buried long ago. Then came the night when Aleftina vanished without a trace. A hastily scribbled note was found on her bed. "I found our grandchild. Don't look for me, I'll bring him home." Panic gripped the family as they realized she might have wandered off to Podgorsk, a distant town mentioned in Igor's case files. With time running out, Tatiana, Ilya, and Maxim launched a frantic search, each plagued by their own fears. What if Aleftina stumbled upon dangerous truths tied to Igor? Or worse, what if her fragile mind led her straight into harm's way? The investigation into Igor's disappearance took a shocking turn when Andrei, a man without identification, was detained under suspicion of involvement in the case. At first, Andrei claimed ignorance, but as pressure mounted during questioning, he revealed a chilling truth. For a brief period, he had lived under Igor's identity. "They forced me to take his name," Andrei confessed, his voice trembling with fear. "I didn't know what else to do. I was desperate." According to him, Igor himself had orchestrated the switch before vanishing entirely, leaving Andrei vulnerable to those hunting for answers. But Andrei's story grew darker shortly after assuming Igor's identity. He was ambushed by a criminal organization tied to Ilya and Vadim. They believed Andrei held critical information about Igor's whereabouts or assets, though he swore he knew nothing. The discovery that followed sent shockwaves through everyone involved. Deep in the forest, police unearthed a shallow grave containing skeletal remains. DNA testing confirmed the body belonged to Andrei, whose life had been extinguished brutally years earlier. However, traces of Igor's DNA found on the corpse reignited hope and dread that Igor might still be alive. Was it possible he had staged his own death? Or worse, was he being held captive somewhere, waiting for rescue or revenge? Meanwhile, Vadim, cornered by Ilya's relentless demands, reluctantly agreed to forge a new identity for Igor. "If we don't act now, everything will collapse," Ilya warned, his tone laced with desperation. Vadim hesitated but ultimately complied, crafting documents designed to give Igor a fresh start far from prying eyes. Yet their plan unraveled catastrophically. Unbeknownst to them, the forged papers fell into the hands of a ruthless gang who recognized the fake credentials immediately. Within days, news surfaced that a prisoner matching Igor's description had died violently behind bars, allegedly targeted by inmates connected to the same criminal syndicate. For Tatiana, these revelations were unbearable. She couldn't shake the feeling that Igor's fate was intertwined with her family's darkest secrets. As she stared at the photograph of Andrei recovered from the crime scene, one question haunted her. If Igor wasn't dead, where was he, and why hadn't he come back? Ilya's decision to take her own life was not born out of despair, but rather a chilling revelation that shattered the foundation of her marriage. Late one night, while searching through Ilya's belongings for answers about his erratic behavior, she stumbled upon documents detailing years of deceit and illegal activities, crimes he had carefully concealed from everyone, even her. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound, as Ilya realized the man she loved was a stranger cloaked in lies. "How could you do this to me?" she whispered into the empty room before swallowing a handful of sleeping pills. Her final act of defiance was leaving behind an envelope filled with irrefutable evidence of Ilya's transgressions, a damning dossier meant to expose him once and for all. When Ilya discovered the envelope on Ilya's bedside table, panic surged through him. He knew its contents could destroy everything he had built. In a frenzied attempt to erase the truth, he burned the papers in the fireplace, watching as flames consumed the physical proof of his crimes. But fate wasn't done with him yet. Tatiana, who had been suspicious of Ilya for some time, walked in just as the last embers flickered. She gasped, horrified as realization dawned. Without hesitation, she pulled out her phone and began taking photos, capturing every moment of his guilt. "You think you can bury this?" She spat, her voice trembling with fury. "This is your end." The images became her weapon, a bargaining chip to ensure Ilya would never manipulate anyone again. Meanwhile, Sonia faced a crisis of her own when the truth about Denis emerged. It turned out that Denis was the son of Vadim, one of Ilya's most dangerous enemies, a fact deliberately hidden until now. When Ilya confronted Sonia with the shocking revelation, he demanded she sever ties with Denis immediately. "He's using you to get back at us," Ilya roared, slamming his fist on the table. Sonia refused to believe it, defending Denis fiercely despite her inner turmoil. However, things escalated quickly when Denis disappeared under mysterious circumstances. A ransom note arrived later, revealing that he had been kidnapped by a group linked to Vadim's criminal empire. Desperate to save him, Sonia embarked on a perilous journey, navigating dark alleys and shadowy figures to uncover his location. Each step brought her closer to danger, and closer to uncovering secrets that could unravel the fragile threads holding their family together. Despite the overwhelming despair that had engulfed nearly every character in this tangled web of secrets, Tatiana refused to give up. Her relentless pursuit of the truth about Igor became an obsession, a lifeline she clung to as everything else crumbled around her. Late one night, while poring over old photographs and documents at her kitchen table, a phone call shattered the silence. "Tatiana," a voice rasped on the other end, low and cautious. "It's me, Igor." For a moment, her heart stopped. The voice was familiar yet distorted, like echoes from another life. "Where are you?" she whispered, her hands trembling so violently she could barely hold the phone. Far away, he replied cryptically. But I've been watching you. You're in danger. Her mind raced with questions. Was it truly him? Or was this some cruel trick orchestrated by those who wished to keep Igor buried forever? As days passed, Tatiana found herself touring between hope and suspicion. Every detail seemed off the tone of his voice, the way he avoided answering direct questions, but something deep inside urged her to believe. She booked a flight to a remote country where the man claimed to be hiding, desperate for answers. But before she could leave, chaos erupted closer to home. In a shocking climax, Ilya confronted Tatiana at their old family house, a place haunted by memories of betrayal and loss. Rain pounded against the windows as they faced each other, guns drawn. You can't run anymore, Ilya snarled, his eyes wild with desperation. If you expose me, we all go down. Tatiana stood firm, though fear clawed at her chest. I won't let you bury the truth again, she shot back, her voice steady despite the storm raging within. A tense standoff ensued, the air thick with hatred and unspoken history. Just as Ilya pulled the trigger, Maxim burst through the door, tackling him to the ground. Gunshots echoed through the empty halls, shattering what remained of their fractured world. Breathing heavily, Tatiana collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Though she survived, the cost of uncovering the truth weighed heavily upon her soul. And as she stared at the phone still clutched in her hand, the last connection to the man who might be Igor, she couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come.